Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel in today. Good to spend some time with him. Good to spend some time with you. So everyone's hustling to get things figured out and finished up for the Christmas weekend, holiday weekend, and some last-minute shoppers. Always remember, there's HailVarsity.com and magazine. Real easy to get both at a wonderful gift that keeps on giving price. HailVarsity.com/subscribe. Do so. You'll love it for that Husker fan in your life. All sports.
I think the best part of the Hail Varsity subscription is it's not a one-time gift. It's a gift that you get every single month for the full year. That's the best part. It is,
and think about the bundle that gets you all the digital content.
That too.
It's incredible. Podcast is free for you. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. We have a program for you today that you'll want to catch live and again on your time. Steve Marik with HailVarsity.com. We'll run down some thoughts with him. Husker women's basketball trying to finish it out the right way before Big Ten play in full starts. Also some Husker football thoughts with Steve. Mitch Sherman in 1 hour with The Athletic. Mitch has got the old truckster loaded up. They're going on a family vacation. Good for them, but we'll talk some portal quarterback thoughts with him. And then it's a Tuesday. He's wearing his Santa hat. Rick Kaczenski, Tuesdays with Kaz. Numbers for you to get in. Can do so at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. And then always give us a follow on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And always follow Hail Varsity at ESPN Lincoln. It's where you can get some great content from the show. Also, ESPNLincoln.com on demand is where you find that. So a lot to get to here. Trev Alberts had his sit down with the network and some good insight. Spring game going to be quite a bit earlier. It was warm and sunny and wonderful to have it May 1st last year, but we'll move it up almost a full month. April 9th is the date. Main reasoning for that, well, you've got field turf repair. Nebraska going to be replacing their surface at Memorial Stadium. That turf has been in place since 2013, and I remember when the AstroTurf got replaced for the first round of field turf. And I could go to any Husker shop and I could buy a snippet of the winningest AstroTurf in college football history. I don't want to know the record for this field turf from 2013 to now.
Well, that was Mike Riley's first year, was it not?
2013?
I believe wasn't that the inaugural? 2014 was Mike Riley's inaugural year.
15.
Oh,
you had 13 and 14 with Bo, and then you had 15 through 17 with Riles, then 18 through now with Frosty.
Yeah, the math checks out. Checks out.
So I don't know if they'll be selling this field turf for sale. Maybe so. I don't know. But you have that, and it's going to be a pretty big weekend here because you have Nebraska baseball that weekend. You're going to do a double dip there. You'll have Husker baseball and spring game football to go check out. Also going to have the third and fourth round of the Masters. So, wow. I mean, it's a loaded weekend. That said, you've got surveys being sent out to a lot of Nebraska fans as early as mid-January to get some feedback on renovations. And Trev said it best, and Trev is a listener. The best and most important thing we can do is listen to our fans. We've gotten fairly consistent feedback on South Stadium. Frankly, we have a lot of work to do, to be honest. We're behind a lot of our peers when it comes to stadium renovations. And the thing that I think about with Memorial Stadium, And I think the last game I was in the stands for, I took junior, maybe it was Idaho State. That might have been during the Bo era, and I know I went with my dad and Dino to Virginia Tech. I think that was maybe Bo's first or second game when they had Missouri and then Virginia Tech back to back. I think it was Virginia Tech first, but that was a tight ball game that Nebraska lost, and it was a night game with Tyrod Taylor playing quarterback. But as far as in the stands, usually I'm thankful I get to go watch in the box, which is great. But I know Junior tried to hit 4 or 5 games last year. My mom took him, or he went with some buddies. So he has dirtied his way into reserved seating, club seating, or a suite. All right, so he's going big, or he's just tailgating.
No, I was at every single home game in the stands this year.
Student section?
I was both student section and the normal just bench seating throughout the stadium. So I think I have the expert opinion here.
No, I think you do. And what say you? Do you? Let's take the product on the field out of the conversation, because once that improves, you're going to put up with whatever you have. Clearly, the product's not been what it needs to be. People have endured bench seating, and in certain areas, not great access to restrooms. It's better. It's way better on the east side, especially with that renovation that went through. I think the last Big Ten game I went with Cranack, Tommy Armstrong's first start. Cranack's got seats, near the sun, bless his heart, on that east side, pretty high up. But it's a great view. But listen, it's a new era of catering to the fans, and Elijah, folks your age are the next generation. Junior is the next. All right, do I want to make it a priority to go to ball games when I get to college and get out of college? Because, that's it. You got a new wave. You're going to have a new wave that need to keep going to the stadium, and the sellout streak has continued, but there's been some work to continue it. So what needs to be fixed? What do you want to see?
The top of my list, first and foremost,
beer.
It's number 2. Beer is number 2. Number 1, though, is just widening the seats. Widening the little individual areas they have for seats.
You're a skinny guy, but you're super tall.
I'm tall. I have broad shoulders, and just naturally,
I'm a lineman.
Just naturally, I am wider than the allocated space for me. And what I've started doing is, especially if there's other wide people in the row with you, is I don't buy the seat back for comfort anymore. I buy the seat back to be able to reserve, this is the width, this is my width, you can't encroach upon my space, because eventually, you get 3 wide people next to each other, you have a large family.
There's some encroachment.
There's a ton of encroachment,
flag.
and you're sitting there with your arms all crushed in, trying to just fit in. So just widen that just a little bit.
So you're buying the chair back. This is my line on each side. Do not cross.
Yes. That's the only reason I'll buy. I don't even think the seat backs are all that comfortable to sit in. I just buy it so I know this is the width we need. Number 2 is beer sales. That feels like a pipe dream still at this point, though. We'll see. Maybe Trev Alberts is, along with the new generation of thinkers.
I think you need beer and whiskey.
At least wine.
You want beer and wine?
A little something stronger than beer for those cold November days whenever you're down by 40.
You need a Bloody Mary bar.
Well, see, another problem is sometimes concession lines can get really long, and I think they could fix that by just having some stands or some individual areas or more of them throughout the stadium where they sell individual products. So, just little... Here's just a little stand where you can just buy Valentino's Pizza or just buy Runza's or whatnot.
Have a designated region.
Mm-hmm. And on top of it, one last thing I'll suggest, cup holders for every seats.
Okay. Yeah, they had that at Arrowhead.
Because you always have to set it on the ground underneath your seat or whatnot, and then as someone tries to scoop past to get to their seat, it gets knocked over, and now you got sticky Pepsi all over your shoes, and it's the worst.
Can I see your cup holder comment and give me? I want. And this is nothing against Pepsi. My wife's a diehard Diet Pepsi fan. Give me the old fountain Coke in the plastic cups that I got in the 1990s and 1980s. Nothing tasted better than the fountain Coke in the plastic Go Big Red glass. It was awesome.
I like Mountain Dew though. See, I'm fine with Pepsi. Pepsi and Coke, they can be interchangeable to me. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in, but Mountain Dew is Pepsi's best product, and I love having Mountain Dew.
So you need your caffeine hit. I get you. So the one thing that was interesting, just kind of looking at some other stadiums we've been to, you walk into Illinois and immediately there's 7 Dos Equis taps staring at you. Or even as far back as Boulder, when we were on the road in 2019 for a road show, you walk into Boulder, and yeah, it's the Coors capital of Division I. I get it. That said, you had a bunch of little, they weren't food trucks, but they were stands. They were outdoor stands set up with local eateries. And that meant you could buy in and have several tables set up and sling pizza if you were old Chicago, which they did in Boulder. I'd be smiling if there's a Lazzari stand, right? I mean, and listen, I know that there's big money paid by Val's and the great folks at Runza to be in there specifically. But if you have it outside the stadium, maybe you have have a food truck convoy set up around the horse. I know there's also tailgating, but have a food truck set up.
And this is what I was saying about even the individual little stands that aren't like actual concession stands, just a little cart in the stadium. Have it be open to local businesses. Let muchachos get in there.
Let them buy in.
Let them buy in, and they can get their own spot. And they have the one specialty cart in the stadium. If you really are have a hankering for that day, you got to walk all the way around the stadium to get to their cart. But it's going to be in the same place every single day. It gives you some more options, and it'll shrink the concession stand lines. However, I just want to piggyback on your beer thought. I know you talked about the Dos Equis on tap. If you go beer in the stadium, that means you have to keep the troughs in the men's bathrooms as opposed to actual individual urinals, because I don't want to wait for a urinal to open up. I'm fine with the troughs.
The trough is a staple. It is legendary. and who hasn't had to lift their kid up to go at some point?
Well, it's just so efficient, too. It's so efficient. There's never a line in the men's bathrooms.
Depending on how long he has to go, that's a workout for your arms. You got to kind of prop him up on your knee. All right, aim straight, eyes forward. Junior, don't be doing a drive-by on anybody. So, yeah, we'll see what changes and suggestions are made.
If you have any we didn't hit on today, feel free to give us a call.
Email, for sure.
Give us a call, 402-466-3776. We'd love to hear from you.
But you nailed it with the encroachment conversation.
That's the
real.
Biggest thing. It's the biggest thing. That's my biggest thing that I dislike about Husker football games is I just feel like I'm packed in there like a sardine all game.
You are. And it's always been that way. The difference is you tolerated it for years because they were winning. It's what it was. Baseball facility. Also, you've got some discussions going on here with Will Bolt, potential upgrades to Haymarket. It's hard to believe, but Haymarket's 20 years old, which is nuts. But
what's also hard to believe is that Alex Gordon training complex they have is now like the indoor one. It's like 8 or 9 years old now.
Yeah. Well, think about Hawks. I mean, Hawks is, what was that, 04, 05, the indoor football facility?
Would have been, that was the same time they got the big screen. So yeah, 04.
Callahan. So this new facility project they're doing for training table and outdoor practice facilities and all athletes, it'll be great. But when it comes to indoor work that can be done, Nebraska fans will no doubt sound off and kind of tailor it. I do like the ability, like the Champions Club's really nice across the street to go get fed and watered. I mean, that works. And I do like the tailgate setup around the stadium, be it the shoe on the east side where Navat had us out for the Michigan game with Gary Michaels, how we were set up in that kind of mini horseshoe. That was a good setup. And then, of course, underneath the overpass with our friends from Blur, I mean, they've got a good setup there. So the tailgating's incredible. What can be better for you inside the stadium, and I'm sure you'll get that survey and sound back off. Pete's going to join in, give us his thoughts here. Pete, thanks for calling. Welcome into Hail Varsity. Go ahead.
How you doing?
Good, Pete. What do you know?
Oh, not too much. I guess for me, to be honest, the seating is pretty tight.
Mm-hmm.
But what really makes it miserable going to a game is the same script game after game. close game, we give it away in the fourth quarter, or we find a way to lose. And for me, I have to drive 140, 150 miles on the way back, so it makes a pretty miserable drive from the stadium all the way back home. So if they could change the script on the field, I think that would make it more pleasurable entertainment.
You'll put up with the crunching in for not anger and frustration for the 150-mile trip back.
Absolutely.
Or at least, if the product on the field isn't getting better, at least better parking and better traffic management on the way out of Memorial Stadium. I mean, there's been cars backed up.
There's nothing you can do, man. There's absolutely nothing you can do.
Why is there always
get a beer? Get a beer and hang out.
There is always a major road construction project going on around the stadium during football season. Why? There's always one major road that's closed down to one lane for no reason on a game day. And you go, why couldn't you have done this in the spring? It's terrible.
What about some transportation from the parking areas to the stadium? That's a pretty long walk last time I went. And for people who are tailgating or up in age, that could be a pretty long walk. I look every time I go for some type of transportation that we could get on and get a ride up to the stadium, but I don't ever find any. That would make it a little more enjoyable.
That's a good idea, bud. Thanks for the phone call. Merry Christmas to you.
You too.
Yep, shuttle service would be all right. Steve Marik, Hail Varsity, up next. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's talk some all things Nebraska with HailVarsity.com and magazine. Steve Marik at Steve_Marik on Twitter does a great job covering Husker football, Nebraska women's basketball, and Bolt ball. Steve, you got your shopping done. That's the question of the day.
Yes. Well, yeah. I it's been a process, but I'm a last minute type of guy with this sort of stuff. So yeah, I am working on it. Let's just say that.
So there's a lot of Hail Varsity subscriptions, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That'd be a great gift for a loved one who wants to keep up on all things Huskers, right?
See, right, it just keeps on giving, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Hey, love you, father-in-law. Here's a subscription to HailVarsity.com and magazine.
There you go.
Boom. So we will dive into Husker basketball here. Nebraska able to pound Drake, and they did it with Jazz kind of having a bit of an off night, but everyone else seemed to pitch in, and that was what Coach Williams pretty much highlighted. Just, you're not a finished product in December, and there's a lot of hands to help kind of lift up, and this team finds different ways to win. Are you feeling good once they potentially get by Wyoming and get into conference play? How do you see things shaping up here in a rugged Big Ten?
Man, yeah, it is a rugged Big Ten, but I think one thing that this non-conference schedule, these 12 games that they're going to be, 11 non-conference games that they're going to be playing, it's showing them that they can. That they don't have to rely on Sam Hybie so much. There's just a lot more to this team than one player, and that's basically what I kind of gathered after the game as Amy Williams talked after that win, was they can win these games by so many different ways, whether that's down low in the post with Bella Cravens doing work and Izzy Bourne doing work, or out in the perimeter with Jazz Shelley doing her thing. I know she had kind of an off night shooting the basketball. But she contributes in other areas. She's leading the team in assists and steals and blocks for a 5'9" guard. So she's just doing everything. And when the shot's not falling, she's still able to help the team. But yeah, I'm really excited for Big Ten play. I think this team is tough. It's gritty. It can win multiple different ways. So yeah, I just can't wait for it. I think they're really going to impress some people.
Steve, can you touch on a little bit the emergence of Alexis Markowski? I know back-to-back double-doubles for her, and we've talked to her dad, Andy, a couple times on the show, but I need to get an unbiased take on just what her emergence as a freshman has meant for this Husker basketball team.
Yeah, Alexis is an interesting story because I don't know how many people thought she was going to have the impact that she's having right now. Now, it remains to be seen if she's going to still have this success that she's having right now once the schedule gets tougher and the bigger girls start guarding her and things like that. But right now, I have to like where she is trending for sure, and I know the team does. Amy Williams sure does. But yeah, what she's giving. She's really providing some energy, some pop, some grit off the bench, and that's great for this team, especially when they're trying to get her the ball down low. I mean, so far, not a lot of people have been able to guard her. So just to be able to have that size down low on the offensive end and defensive end at 6'2", 6'3", she's a load to handle down there. And so far, not a lot of girls have been up for the challenge. So it's really going to be interesting to see what the Big Ten, I guess, opponents kind of scout her and how they try to defend her, because she's really doing it all, both on the offensive court and offensive end and the defensive end, and just putting in work, like you said, with the back-to-back double-doubles. That's just great for a true freshman.
Steve Marik with us here on Hail Varsity, covers Nebraska women with HailVarsity.com and magazine. Follow him on Twitter at Steve_Marik. So we talked to Andy, and he's kind of our regular, and yeah, he's really proud of Alexis. And the thing that he touched on, though, because we were asking him about the Markowski 3-point shooting between Alexis and him, and he's like, "Look, man, I was just going to set screens and follow the ball and rebound, but her range. I know she in high school it was, get it down to her and get a closer shot, but she has ability." And she's always working on her game to stretch out a little bit. I mean, I think not that you want to live outside the paint, but if you're forced to against bigger people down low, that's a weapon that I'm sure she's working on, her range.
Yeah, absolutely. She's 2 for 3 from out there this year. She doesn't take a lot of them, but she also doesn't need to. But that's, like you said, that's a part of her game that is growing, and it's going to be utilized when she gets more comfortable doing it, because I don't know how many teams are going to expect her to shoot it up there, but those dead-on straight threes at the top of the key, that's something that she can hit. She has hit, and it's something that I don't think the team is expecting her to get like 2 or 3 a night. But if it's open, why not take a few? Why not take a couple or a few a game? There's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, it was a fun kind of aspect with her and her dad. I think it was the Minnesota game where they kept showing him, and maybe just some social media fun after the game when she hit a 3 at Minnesota. But yeah, it's a part of her game that is there. It's growing, but so is she in her basketball career. I mean, she's just a true freshman, and like I said, what she's able to do right now in her first collegiate year is really impressive. I know that she'll be the first to tell you that the free throws need to be better, and she needs to have a better free throw percent, but that she's working on that also. I remember after one of the games earlier this season, she said she was up at the podium in the post-game press conference, and she said, yeah, those free throws are going to be a big part of her game just from how many offensive rebounds she gets under the hoop every game. She's going to get hacked. So, just being able to get up to the free throw line, control her breathing, I remember her saying, and then just, shoot the free throws, and they're going to go in. Right now, I think she's kind of hovering around 60% at the free throw line, but that's going to go up as she gets more confident, and she is getting more confident.
Steve, going to switch to football here and get your take. A story you did Signing day's come and gone. I know we have the second signing period looming. There's portal activity potentially with Nebraska. But of the 22 recruits, who are some guys that are on your radar that could contribute pretty immediately?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about doing a story on that, it was mainly because of two guys, Deshaun Singleton and Kevin Williams Jr. Now, it's no surprise that those guys have experience under their belt. They have reps playing a lot of games under their belts already. Let's just stick with Deshaun at safety. Look, I mean, Nebraska's going to be needing to replace 3 of the 4 starters back there in the defensive backfield. I know Miles Farmer had some really good experience after Deontay Williams, unfortunately, had his season end after picking off an interception at Minnesota. But, you know, they're going to need – I'm thinking I really like what Miles Farmer showed last year, and I think he's put himself in the driver's seat to start at one of those safety positions. And the other one is going to be a new guy, and who's that going to be? It's going to be really interesting to see play out, but you have to like what Deshaun Singleton, the junior college transfer, brings to the backfield because, you know, he played junior college ball at Hutchinson, and, you know, he's a big guy, 6'3", over 200 pounds. He just looks like a Big Ten safety. You know what I mean? I watch a lot of college football, and those big guys, you know, sometimes they don't always tackle well. But I put on Deshaun Singleton's huddle highlights, and he tackles well. He brings his feet, he brings his shoulders. He plays like he's 6'3" and a 205-pound safety. So I really like that aspect of it. Now, of course, you don't want to just count out all the other guys that have been, you know, working their butts off here in Lincoln, like Noah Pulla-Gates. He's been here for a while now, so you can't just throw him out. So it's going to be really interesting just to see how that other safety and corner position play out. But Deshaun Singleton, I really like what he brings. I think that was a great addition to the defensive backfield. And then with Kevin Williams Jr., just a large, massive human being, 6'5", 6'6", over 300 pounds. I could see him stepping into that Nebraska offensive line room and just like adding experience and a little bit of mean and grit and something that, you know, that seems to be lacking with that Nebraska offensive line recently. Just get somebody in there who is like mean and maul and is big and can just enforce his will. I think it's going to be a great kind of molding block for a new line coach, Donovan Raiola, to really work with Kevin James, who, you know, comes over from Northern Colorado, started 2 seasons over there. So, you know, those are really 2 guys that I'm really excited to see.
Steve, quickly, I want to get your take on a transfer wide receiver that's flown under the radar just a little bit. It's Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda from New Mexico State. I saw you did a little bit of a film breakdown of him on Twitter. What do you think of the kid, and do you think he could be a guy who could be seen in the field in 2022?
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't want to forget about Isaiah. He is a really talented, I think, full of potential wide receiver that, you know, before he even announced that he was coming to Nebraska, we all had to like what the Huskers have at that position, right? I mean, you have Xavier Betts, you have Omar Manning, you have a lot of young guys that maybe Mickey Joseph can get something out of. And just to add a guy like Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda to Lincoln, that just like improves that wide receiver room even more. Now, on a side note, it makes you wonder, like, okay, who's going to be throwing the ball to these guys? But that's another discussion. So Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda, the thing that I see with him is just straight speed, man. I mean, put him in the slot. He's about 6 foot, 185, 190 pounds. Just from what I saw from him, I didn't get to see anything at his first stop at Saddleback College. But from what I saw at New Mexico State with the Aggies, you know, they had him playing on the outside, but a lot of his catches were over the middle of the field and just letting him get in space and just outrun people. And you know, at least at that level, he could do that. And it makes you wonder what he can really bring to the Power 5 level. You know, pair him, you know, stick him in the slot with guys like Omar Manning and Xavier Betts on the outside and you know, whichever tight end, Travis Vokalek, Thomas Fidone, whoever, just there's a lot of weapons in that Nebraska wideout room and pass catcher pass catcher room that I think a guy like Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, you stick him in the slot and, he can run past people. So I'm really excited for this room. And for Mickey Joseph, it's going to be really super interesting.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Steve Marik with his Hail Varsity Radio. Some Big Red football thoughts. Steve, we'll get you out of here real quick, though. Wanted to get your thoughts here. Trev Alberts had his monthly call-in and touched on a survey that is going out, Memorial Stadium renovations. Yep, they're getting new field turf. But what else do fans want with Memorial Stadium? Start there. And then also, are you concerned about all the quarterback transfers, the portal quarterbacks that are going elsewhere? Are you concerned, second part, that Nebraska hasn't landed one yet, or are you a patient guy?
Yeah, so let's start with the Memorial Stadium upgrades. I've been in the media for a long time here, so I haven't really been to Husker games where I've actually had to sit out there or I wasn't in the press box. But the one thing that I personally would like, if there was some seats in there, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Make it a little bit more enjoyable experience to not be able to sit on benches basically, but just a little padded seat action would go a long way for me. I don't know about you guys, but
I want beer taps. I want a party deck. Give me a hot tub. I mean, seriously. You look at some of the. I look at SEC ball games, and you see some party deck type setups, don't you?
Oh yeah.
I mean, give me a fan zone type deal where there's a bargain food and beverage option, and maybe instead of benches, it's like a standing room only type setup. Obviously, you got to worry about pandemic stuff, but eventually, hopefully, all that crap goes away or is more manageable. So the students, think about the student section mid-tier, South End Zone, where it's a mosh pit.
Well, I think you do it like you do it at Pinnacle Bank Arena with the student section, where you put them in the. I mean, you don't want to take away the big money seats, which is the problem, but put them in the spot where they're obstructed by the opponent bench, right behind the opponent bench, and put a part of the student section right behind the west side of the stadium, behind where the opponent bench is, and keep them down low, where people don't really like those low seats anyway, because your view of the field can be blocked by the bench. I think you need to move the student section out of a place where they're an afterthought in the corner of the stadium, whenever they're probably providing some of the best atmosphere to that stadium as a whole.
Be a true 12th man. Mm-hmm. But I like the party deck. Give me a hot tub. I mean, it'd be kind of fun.
And widen the seats on the benches by 2 inches a seat. You can pull some seats out, but it's okay. You're struggling to sell the seats anyway. Widen them by 2 inches. Well, I'm not sure how wide those seats are, but people are wider nowadays than they were back in the 1960s.
Here's the deal, and Steve, you can touch on this. Listen, I know the thing pumped up to 90,000 not long ago, and the East Side renovation and suites and that upper tier. I mean, it's really, I've sat up there. It's all good. But you can shrink capacity a little bit and make it more comfortable. I mean, and I think Trev gets that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Just to make it a more enjoyable experience, so you're not just sitting on a metal bench, for 3.5 hours. Get some padded seats in there. It's going to decrease the size, but whatever. People are watching the games. More and more people are watching games at home anyway.
Find special teams. Find a special teams savior when it comes to kicking and returning and blocking as well. Elijah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, aesthetically, I've always been a fan of the natural grass field. I'm not sure if that's something they'd be looking at, but Go natural grass field, and then guess what? You can host some World Cup games there down the line too.
Sure.
Oh, come on.
World Cup. We're going World Cup here. I love it.
Yeah, look, Elijah's dreaming big, baby. I like it.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but getting back to that quarterback question, it's an interesting one. Of course, if I was a fan of the Huskers, I would want a quarterback in the transfer portal ready to go. But man, these guys are flying off the shelf quick. Like Keaton Slovis, I've heard those rumors that he was kind of potentially looking at Nebraska. I don't know how serious Pittsburgh is with Keaton. I know he was kind of rumored to go there, but yeah, we are seeing a lot of these quarterbacks hit the portal and come out quick, like Bo Nix going to Oregon, I believe it was, and a personal favorite of mine that I thought Nebraska should have took a big swing at, Tommy DeVito from Syracuse. Bert over at Illinois grabbed him, so that's a good pickup for the Illini. And then another guy that I thought Nebraska could take a good hard look at, Jack Miller from Ohio State. He just got picked up by Florida today. So yeah, these guys are going quick. I know Casey Thompson from Texas and maybe Braxton Burmeister from Virginia Tech. Those are two that I like that have experience, and that's the one thing that I think Scott Frost and Mark Whipple really want in their next quarterback here that they're looking for is experience. Just a guy that has done it before. He's played a lot of reps under his belt, and he's been there and done that basically. And I think Burmeister and Casey Thompson are really two guys that maybe they need to really get a win on here, or else it's going to be really slim pickings going forward.
Well, I'm starting to think that Nebraska might wait until they get through spring practice and see if anyone enters the portal after spring practice and see what they have right now before they go make a splash in the transfer portal. Are you starting to get that feel?
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, really, is it that bad to be waiting and just wait and see it with this whole thing? Just considering how crazy and how fluid everything is. I mean, no, that's completely. That's a good idea if you're asking me to. They can go a lot of different ways here, but the wait and see approach, I don't think that's a problem either. That's just the way things are going right now. It's crazy. Who knows?
Well, you have options with Harburg, and I know the experience part isn't vast, but you like the talent. I'm sure Whipple does, and of course Smothers feels like a gamer to me. Let's see what you can coach him up to being in the passing game, and Whipple's I'm sure excited to work with that room before you go shopping. Let's see what can happen with what you already have here. Steve Marik is with us from Hail Varsity. Steve, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Chris.
Good to get caught up with him. He'll have some stuff here for your reading pleasure here coming up on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with HailVarsity.com. So while we were talking with Steve, you've got some breaking news. Well, not necessarily breaking, but it's a little bit old now, but it was breaking about 30 minutes ago. You have the contract numbers finally announced, and Mickey Joseph going to make $600,000 per year over the next 2 seasons for Nebraska. Donovan Raiola, $325,000 per year over the next 2 years. So you're saving them, just shy of $200,000 on the O-line. You're upping what Lubick was making by $100,000. And we don't have numbers yet here on Mark Whipple, though he's probably going to make the most. You've got Coach Chinander's making $800,000. I would like to see Coach Chinander get bumped. And I know that historically speaking, defensively, some of the numbers weren't all-time great, but let's put it into context for what Nebraska's been going through defensively the last few years. This was a really, really awesome effort and collective. It was a good group defensively. And listen, man, they kept Nebraska in every football game there was this year.
And let's also put into perspective what Chinander's job was expected to be whenever he came here. His job was never to have a top 5 scoring defense. It was to give the offense a chance to win you games, keep the other team below 25 points a game, and he did that for the most part.
Well, based on turnover generation,
that too,
which you didn't have a lot of that, but all right, so you didn't get the turnovers. You at least got some stops. We'll wind down hour 1.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Hour 2 on the way, 10 minutes away. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. A Tuesday with Kaz. Rick Kaczenski will dive in to some of his takes here on the assistant spot that's still open. Is that reason for panic? Elijah, remember watching him play ball, and what a year he had at Northern Illinois. Jay Ducker is in the portal, 1,200 yards. And he's another Nebraskan that got away. And you had Coach McBride spend some time on Noah Walters yesterday. And you just want to keep in-state guys here. And the state is growing in a sense where you have more and more prospects are being found out about because of the magic of huddle, and there's no state secrets anymore. I mean, guys are going to be seen and heard, and Nebraska's been infiltrated by Iowa. It's been infiltrated by Oregon, and you're just going to lose guys, but you can't take everybody.
Well, Ducker, whenever you get back to him, he just feels like a big miss. I remember his career at Bellevue West where he scored, 3 or 4 touchdowns in the state championship game a couple years ago. He always just looked like a great running back, and I guess the recruiting services weren't all that high on him because he didn't have the size, didn't have the measurables, but he just had the vision and the nose for being able to get in the end zone and get the tough yards.
And MAC football, while not the Big Ten, is kind of, a related family member to Big Ten football. You can play in the MAC. You could probably do some good things. There's good football players in the MAC. It's probably your best Group of 5 league.
AAC.
AAC is really good too. Yeah, I mean that's
the MAC
fair.
is definitely the most exciting Group of 5 conference when you have all that MACtion on weeknights.
Sure,
beautiful football.
It's in rugged weather. And you've seen coaches jump, and you look at Iowa State. Their stud back was just up the road at Iowa Western, and you didn't get him. So we'll see if Nebraska can figure that out. If there's room for him here, if you go back and take another crack at it. Reminder about buckling up. 1 out of every 3 crashes in Nebraska involves an alcohol-impaired driver. Why take chances? If you drink, don't drive. Get a ride share or get that designated driver. This message, this reminder, this holiday season from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Can get your emails in. Chris at HailVarsity.com. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. We spent plenty of time touching on some of Trev's comments last night about the survey that's going to go out in January to Nebraska fans. What do you want to see improved at Memorial Stadium? There's going to be a loud chant in response, almost like the Husker power you're familiar with before kickoff, before the tunnel walk. You're going to have an outcry of more room in the stands.
And I'm going to go see. This is just some things that's been on my mind. So I'm going to go see Spider-Man tonight, and of course I'm going to go sit in the Dream Loungers, where I get my own big space. I get to put the feet up.
You buy a beer.
Comfortable leather. I can buy a beer. Make that my game day experience. It makes me more likely to go see a movie, especially on a $5
You want a
Tuesday.
Dream Lounger in the stadium?
Oh yeah.
You want the Dream Lounger section?
Yeah, put it right on the field. Let me sit in my big recliner.
Well, when you hit that lottery number.
I can take a nap if the game gets bad.
Could be. Hopefully not. Mitch Sherman on the way, hour 2. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. We welcome in Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, as we chat, man, you got everybody loaded up and bundled up, and a little roadie for you this holiday season. Good for you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Getting out of town for a couple days. Hopefully there's no giant news. If there is, I'm sure it'll still be there when I get back.
Mitch Sherman is like, just put things on hold. I love it. We'll dive in when it comes to your story, and I love the work you do and covering Nebraska football. And you had a chance to get caught up with Coach Osborne, and this is in kind of reference to the Athletics list of greatest bowl games. And you had a chance to revisit the '84 Orange Bowl a little bit with. Probably the greatest.
Yeah, so we ran a list of the 50 greatest bowl games on Monday. That kicked off our series this week on tales from the bowl seasons of past. So we've made an attempt to have a little bit of fun with stories that people may not have heard behind the scenes. Different takes, different experiences from bowl seasons of past decades. And there's no shortage in Nebraska of interesting tales. I chose to dive into December of 1983, and of course that '84 Orange Bowl on January 2nd that year is one of the most famous games in Nebraska football history, maybe the most famous moment in Nebraska football history at the end with the two-point conversion call that Osborne made, and it just had such huge ramifications for years and years that followed. And I think it set up Nebraska to eventually win the championships that it did a decade later and cap Osborne's career with 3 and 4 years. But going back to that game, and what one of the elements that made it so interesting is that Lincoln was in an absolute deep freeze in December of 1983. And I like these kind of stories that can look at this stuff. And the average temperature in Lincoln that month was 8.1 degrees. It got down to minus 27 on the day before Nebraska was approved early to leave for Miami. Osborne appealed to the Chancellor, Martin Massengale, to get the plane out of town 2 days early. They were supposed to leave on Christmas because they had been outside for all of 1 hour in the month of December. There was no Cook Pavilion at this time. And this game, this experience is what led to the construction of Cook Pavilion some 3 years later. But, so much history, fun to talk to Coach Osborne and get caught up with Jim Scow, who lives in Florida, was a longtime NFL player as a defensive lineman for Nebraska on those teams. I chatted a little bit with Turner Gill and some other people, who remember that time better than me. I was young, remember the game, don't remember anything about that cold month of December, though.
I'm with you as far as remember it just always being, it's wintertime, it's Christmas, it's cold, and, every January Nebraska's in the Orange Bowl. I mean, that's kind of my childhood. Once in a while, maybe a Sugar Bowl or maybe a Fiesta Bowl, but I remember my dad coming down on New Year's Day that morning because we had a VHS. The old console TVs, Mitch, right? Well, the first run of VCRs were giant as well. And I remember my dad.
Beta, so.
Okay. We had Beta, and then we had two.
We had the Beta Max. Yeah, you go to Applause Video and pick up a limited selection.
But I remember Dad coming down that morning. He was all excited for Nebraska's going to win it, and there's still tapes, I think, in my mom's basement of the '83 season. He was all over it.
The '83 season, the regular season, ended as usual on Black Friday. It was in Norman. The Oklahoma game was in Norman that year. And for a story I wrote a few months ago when Nebraska played Oklahoma, and Jason Kersey and I did the series on the Nebraska-Oklahoma history. I wrote about Lyle Bremser, and that was his last game as the play-by-play voice for Nebraska on KFAB. And in talking to Kent Pavelka about that experience, he knew that he was going to get the job and replace Bremser, and thought that he may never live to see that day because the plane ride home from Norman that night, they ran into an ice storm. It was raining in Norman, and they got over central Kansas on their private plane and their little prop that the radio station chartered. And Kent thought that was the end, and it obviously made it home. So that ice storm dumped an inch and a half of pure ice on Memorial Stadium, and then 7 inches of snow on top of that. And it's the storm that triggered that deep freeze that lasted really into January of that winter. Osborne told me that they tried to melt the ice on the field. That the sun got the north part of the field enough loose that the grounds crew was able to scrape the ice off the 50 yards on the north side, but the south side was hard freeze. So they poured hot water on the ice on the south side of the field. Bad idea when it's like 2 degrees outside because the hot water also turned to ice.
Yes.
So there was no full length practice that entire month in Lincoln.
Mitch Sherman's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch Sherman, of course, with The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter, recounting the 84 Orange Bowl. Is that game, when you talk to Coach Osborne about it, does it still stick in his craw, or is he still, or is it different as time's gone on? He's still proud of the Gopher 2. He's still proud of that team.
Yeah.
Because they were so good. They're still memorable almost 40 years later.
Yeah, it's still in the conversation every time you talk about the greatest all-time Nebraska team. That one is in the conversation because of that offense, the scoring explosion, 52 points per game. That was outdone by the '95 team, but the rushing total, 401.7, remains the school record at Nebraska. And it was incredible with Mike Rozier and Turner Gill, and Irving Fryer, the wingback, was the number one pick in the NFL draft the next spring. So I think Osborne, he recognizes the importance of that game in Nebraska history, and understands the context, of course, that if that hadn't happened that way, everything else could have unfolded differently over the 13 or 14 years that followed. Nebraska may not have had some of the same resolve to change up its bowl preparations in the later 80s. Maybe there wouldn't have been the urgency to build an indoor facility. The 90s may not unfold in the same way if Nebraska ties Miami in that game, or even if it beats Miami and wins that game. Who knows? Things may have been better for Nebraska in the 80s, or it could have been totally different if that two-point conversion had a different outcome.
You want to get back in the DeLorean, you would ask Nebraska fans, hey, keep the Miami dynasty from being born. Mitch, would you jump in the passenger seat?
Yeah, that would be amazing. There's so many alternative versions of history that could have unfolded if that game had gone differently, and that's for certain one of them, because that was Miami's first championship, and Howard Schnellenberger moved on shortly after that. But the parade of great quarterbacks was just getting started. Bernie Kosar was a redshirt freshman on that team. He threw for 300 yards, and he exposed a Nebraska defense that had some holes in the secondary to begin with, but then was ill-prepared for that game because it just didn't get the opportunity to go against the passing attack at any point in practice leading up to it. Not because Nebraska couldn't throw the ball as a scout team, but because there was nowhere to throw it. You couldn't do that in the Schulte Fieldhouse, which was 20 yards wide by 50 yards. When they got to Miami, it was 80-some degrees. The players, a lot of them came down with allergies and sickness, as was common when the Huskers would go to Miami and get into that that warm air. But it was worse that year because it had been so cold and frozen in Lincoln. And then just adjusting to the humidity with what they had been through for the past month was difficult. So Nebraska was off its game for sure on both sides of the ball that night on January 2nd at the Orange Bowl. But especially on the defensive side, going against a quarterback like Bernie Kosar, it was a sign of things to come for sure for the Hurricanes, because they had great ones who followed him for a long, long time.
Mitch, going to switch gears, sticking with the quarterback. Mitch Sherman with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Do you have a feel timeline-wise here with a couple of question marks, Nebraska and the portal quarterback? We've talked every Tuesday for a lot of years, and the last few Tuesdays it's been, hey, what's happening at quarterback? And we're still kind of waiting. I know Brennan's staying with LSU. There's been some different movement. Nick's to Oregon. What's your Slovis rating right now? Hot, cold, warm? Do you think that's something? I know Notre Dame is a place that reached out to him immediately per Slovis on a podcast, but I think there's a lot of Arizona / Scottsdale connections with Coach Whipple. Yeah. Also Chubba Purdy because of his background and Whipple, and we'll see if Pitt's still a fit for Purdy, because he was looking at Pitt just because of Whipple. So it's an interesting dynamic now, Mitch, with Nebraska in their quarterback spot.
Yeah, it is. I would say those Arizona connections for Whipple are key if Nebraska is going to have a chance with Purdy, the Florida State transfer, who's the brother of Brock Purdy, Iowa State's 4-year starter, or with Slovis, the USC transfer. Those guys are going to have a lot of options, especially Slovis, because of his accomplishments. He has injury concerns, as do some of the other guys in the portal. I would say keep an eye on Casey Thompson, who's leaving Texas with Sark bringing in Quinn Ewers, the Ohio State 5-star transfer, who should still be a senior in high school, but has spent a semester in Columbus. He's going to Texas. So Casey Thompson, who started the majority of the season for the Longhorns, is on the move. And I wouldn't get caught up too much in Texas's struggles. Thompson had an injury after the Oklahoma game. He threw 5 touchdowns without an interception against Oklahoma after guiding Texas to 3 consecutive wins when he took over the starting job early in the season. So, there were definitely ups and then some downs for Thompson as that season went along. But I keep an eye on him, and and there are going to be more dominoes that fall, because these quarterbacks are going to go places, and potentially you'll see quarterbacks at the schools that they land at choose to leave after the first of the year. I know Nebraska would like to get a quarterback in the mix to start school that first week of January, be able to go through spring practice in March and early April. But it's more important to find the right fit. And if it's a guy who can't come until the end of the spring semester, that's a setback for his progress and his ability to compete with Logan Smothers and Heinrich Harburg and Richie Torres in the spring. You still take it if it's the right fit, and you get that guy acclimated over the summer, and then give him an opportunity in August to win the job.
Mitch, what do you think of the quarterback room and Coach Whipple? You've got Harburg, who's got all the measurables. You have Torres, that's a guy that's been under the radar, but man, he looks big and talented. And then, of course, Smothers just feels kind of like a gamer. He had a good showing against Iowa. Do you think the excitement's pretty mutual between the quarterback room and the new OC?
Well, the cupboard's not there, and Scott Frost has said that if Nebraska goes into next season with the guys that it's got on the roster, he'll be okay with that. Clearly they want to add someone for the purpose of experience and depth and just numbers. Torres, I don't think you can expect him in his true freshman season to be a guy who's counted upon, coming off of a knee injury and coming out of high school, much like Harburg in this 2021 season. Harburg is still probably has a little bit of time of development needed before he's a guy that you can count on. Perhaps it could happen in 2022, but I don't know that Nebraska wants to be in that position. Smothers is a different story. He's proven that he can play. Probably the least of the three, who from a physical standpoint, just what he does with his arm best fits what we've seen from Mark Whipple in his quarterback teachings. But he does have some things there, and his athletic ability is definitely in line with what Scott Frost likes to do with his offense. So the big thing with Smothers is that we know he's a winner. We know he can play and perform under pressure. I don't think it should be overlooked, the work that he did in those first three quarters against Iowa in the season finale. The fourth quarter went badly for the entire team, and he was definitely a part of that. He didn't start it, but, as a quarterback, you've got to be the guy who puts an end to those struggles. A lot to ask of a guy in his first start, his first extended playing time, to do it out there in that situation against a good defense in the Big Ten. But I know that Logan does take responsibility for that. Don't overlook, though, like I said, those first three quarters, he was very good, very sound in giving Nebraska a chance to win through the first 45 minutes of that game. And I think it should be taken into account when the Huskers consider what they have going into the spring with the guys who are already on campus.
Mitch, we'll do this again, bud. Get caught up after the new year. Thanks so much for your time. Best wishes. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thanks, Chris. All the same to you.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce: 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to our friend Rick Kaczenski. It's Tuesdays with Kaz, coach of Nebraska and Iowa, and I love talking ball with him. Kaz, you got all your holiday shopping handled?
Yeah, brother. Well, Merry Christmas to you. I appreciate you having me on. Schmidt Rock, there's not a whole lot I haven't done online, to be honest with you. So, most of Amazon, and my wife's got she's got a Gladiator Jeep, so I've been spending a lot of money on Jeep parts that we'll never use, but man, they look cool. There's no way in hell I'd ever let her take it off road, but let me tell you, if we ever got off the road, let me tell you, it'd be easy getting out. So yeah, we got a 10,000-pound winch, all kind of stuff. So that's her hot rod, but yeah. I don't think it's been in a puddle, let alone off road.
It's kind of like Ferris Bueller's buddy Cameron's Ferrari. It just kind of sits and people stare at it in awe.
Yeah, man, crazy.
Well, that's good. I got the family's holiday shopping done, and we'll hammer through this, and a bunch of bowl games on the horizon here. I want to start with some Nebraska stuff, and then we'll kind of zoom out. Are you surprised there's not been an announcement yet of that fourth full-time coach, and you're kind of up for a decision between full-time running backs coach and, of course, special teams coordinator?
Well, yeah, I'm sure they have a pretty good idea what they're doing. I think when the rhetoric always changes, the goalpost always move, and that's just it's college football. When you're dealing with hirings and firings, it's extremely fluid. But I think probably a big part of it was is you got a list of guys, and some guys they're afraid. I mean, I got into it. You don't want to lose a job until you have another one. Sure. So and sometimes head coaches, they're going to sit there and tell you. I sat in the staff room one time. It was funny. I mean, it was a place I did not want to go. There's no way in hell I wanted to go. I was trying to get a raise, and the head coach was sitting at the front and said, the next guy that comes to me about a job and wants a raise, you better take it. And I said, so, sometimes that's how it goes. But I think now it's so different, Schmitty, because the early signing date, the way the season ends, the amount of contact that you have, it's just really, really difficult to get those interviews in. A lot of assistant coaches, a lot of things didn't happen until after the bowl games.
Sure.
There was never any contact until really Nebraska, and that was after the regular season. And I mean, I didn't join Nebraska staff until the bowl game. I mean, literally, it was about 2 days before the bowl game, and that was, to be honest, that was kind of rare. But it was getting so much media attention. And then when Kirk and I talked, and was I staying, going, and then when I decided to stay, I mean, I wasn't going to coach the bowl game at Iowa, and then go to Nebraska. It just made sense to go. But that was kind of early. But prior to that, I mean, there was never any interviews or contacts until after bowl season. A lot of that stuff took place at the conventions, but it's just so sped up now. And gosh, man, it's just even when you have time, you don't know if you're making the right decision or if it's a good fit. You got to have some luck to it. You just never know. But yeah, I think that fourth position, I think what you had to do was get those critical positions. And I know everybody wants a special teams coordinator or this and that, but I think the needs that they addressed, they got their critical stuff done. So I think you got a little bit of time, and I think, you can sell that to the fan base. I think what was more important, obviously, when you got an opportunity to get a guy like Mickey Joseph, and then, getting the line coach and the coordinator was extremely important. So I think, now you sit back, you look at the staff, you look what you got, you analyze what you got and say, okay, what's the best way to go about doing this? I know several people that don't have special teams coordinators, and I know people that do have special teams coordinators in name only. It's kind of like an assistant head coach. I mean, you have assistant, you have head, or you have coordinators, special teams coordinators, but every position coach is responsible for a specific unit. So it's like I said, it's fluid and it's all relative. It's all up to interpretation. But I wouldn't get too worried about this next position. I think they attacked what they needed. I think they got some good names. They got some experience, and I really think that that's what they needed. I know Raiola doesn't have the experience, but that on paper, but that's all BS. I didn't have experience as a D-line coach, back in 2006 either. So, when you got good players and you're surrounded by good coaches and you preach toughness and discipline and effort, you'd be amazed what you get. So, and I think that's what Raiola is going to bring, just kind of that and it has, I'm not saying the last guys weren't, not saying that at all. But hearing a different voice and getting a different message, could be healthy for that unit. And then obviously you got an elder statesman in the room now on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's critical because I think you got a guy in there that's not afraid to tell Coach Frost to go to hell or tell him you're crazy, and if you want to run that, then put your name on it. What's this guy got to lose? He'll just go. So I think you need that, and I think you got that right. And what you can't do is just be throwing the ball up 55 times a game in the Big Ten. That ain't going to work. So I think if you understand that, hey, you take your shots, that in this conference, the passing game is set up with the run and play action and those type of things. And once you get into mid-October and November, you're not going to be able to throw the ball all over the field in the Big Ten. I think that's just what, okay, this is what we are. This is our identity. you can't be a pass happy team. You look at let's look at the teams that have had success in the conference that look like us. What do? They run the damn football.
Mm-hmm.
They run the damn football first, and then they take the shots, and then they loosen you up, and then they run the football some more, and they keep the ball out of the other opponent's hands. So I think you got some guys that, will be able to recognize, even though, hey, they may have not done that at the last place they've been at, but now this is the Big Ten, and this is how we're going to be successful. This is how we're going to win games, and this is what we need to do. This is how we need to adapt with the personnel that we have here, right? And this is how we're going to incorporate, Coach Frost, what you've already done, but this is how we're going to tweak it. So I think you got those pressing needs. I really like the maturity of the guys you got, and I'll be excited to see it unfold here next fall.
Rick Kaczenski is with us a Tuesday with Kaz, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, the portal quarterback, you've got names entering and names moving. Don't have official announcement, but there's been some linkage between Slovis and maybe Notre Dame. I know Nebraska was interested in Slovis, the SC quarterback. But let's talk timeline there real quick. And is it horrible if it is even after spring? Or if you were attacking this thing, would you want your guy now if you know you had your guy? Well, you're projecting anyway, or would you just be patient because there could be another 2 or 3 waves or rounds of portal quarterback transfers?
Yeah. I mean, just with the way it is these days, I mean, you have no idea. You could have a great quarterback come up after spring ball. You just don't know. There might be some battles brewing at some Power 5 schools where all of a sudden, guy gets beat out. Guy gets beat out in the spring, and he's looking for a new place, or he just, that's the problem with the portal right now. Is just there's no consequences for transferring. There's no there's no parameters around these transfer rules, and I just don't think it's good for the game. I mean, you may benefit a little bit, but you still don't forget you got a quarterback on campus, so you got that, and I think people need to. I think people got to look at that too. What are we doing? What do you have on campus right now? Because everybody's talking about what you don't have and what you're trying to get. And I think the most important thing that you should do is, how about you look at what you have first, all right? Then how do you complement that? So, gosh, I mean, and who knows? I mean, you look at Spencer Rattler. It's just a very unique position. A lot of it has to do with who you're surrounded with. Obviously it's a huge mental game, but I mean, last year, what school in the country wouldn't take Spencer Rattler, right? I mean, this guy's a Heisman hopeful and gets beat out by a true freshman. I mean, who would have hedged that bet, right? So you just never know how a guy's going to develop, how a guy's going to jump, or how he's going to fit into a system. Obviously, it's an extremely important position. But, I would concentrate on the guys you have on campus right now. It's like everything else. Everybody thinks there's somebody better out there. There's a better job. There's a better looking girl. There's a better this. There's a better this. The grass isn't always greener. And, unless guys are transferring up, let me tell you, I've been watching these playoff games. There's that kid from Incarnate Word.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude was there's quarterbacks everywhere. I mean, when I was in the Big Ten, and we didn't play as many MAC teams. We didn't play the MAC teams like we did at Nebraska, like we did at Iowa. But let me tell you, I never played against a bad MAC quarterback when we were at Iowa. I mean, they scared the hell out of us. So, there is good quarterbacks everywhere. So I wouldn't be quite as concerned about getting somebody with a name that somebody knows. You can't worry about the press conference. You can't worry about all that stuff. Because you know what, come the fall, nobody cares about your recruiting rankings. Nobody cares about, this guy was a 4-star or 5-star. This guy is a quarterback that came over.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcast is part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back to you. It's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. A few more minutes with Rick Kaczenski on Hail Varsity.
I think Nebraska, and has nothing against the kid, but I think I remember, there was a lot of people talking about this player that came from Ohio State that was a 5-star something. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure he got on the field he left Ohio State, came to Nebraska, and I don't think he's played at all. So, it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what you did before. It matters once you get to campus. And I think that's the important thing, and that's the coach's job to identify their needs and, see this guy and say, okay, this is how this guy can fit into our puzzle. So don't get hung up on names or where these guys came from or stars or any of that BS. Get what you get. Keep the kids on campus, because that's the most important thing right now is recruit the kids, keep the kids that are there, and, develop those guys.
Rick Kaczenski is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. This time of year, Kaz, you can turn on about any channel and find Christmas Vacation or A Christmas Story, right? Mm-hmm. But make the case for me, and you get the Die Hard conversation, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? But make the case for me about Goodfellas. I know it's a tradition like none other at the Kaz household. You watch Goodfellas, one of my favorite movies for sure. I love Goodfellas. I interviewed Henry Hill back in 2004 when he was living out in North Platte, Nebraska.
Not a good 401k plan or pension plan for those guys, for that profession.
No, Henry got hit in another drug sting before he passed. Shockingly enough.
Yeah, it's kind of like coaching in football. You just can't get away from it, right? No matter how hard you try, you're just constantly pulled back in, but. Yeah, good Christmas scene, did Christmas. Frankie Carbone didn't have the Christmas he anticipated, but
the meat locker.
Yeah. Well, even though put it in his mother-in-law's name, you got to be smarter than that.
Would you have ever gone that flamboyant with a pink caddy that big? Was it a Lincoln or a caddy? The pink Lincoln.
It was a caddy.
Okay, a pink caddy.
It was a caddy. It was a pink caddy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd have gone pink, but yeah, I would have. You would have known I was coming. That's for sure.
So you would have ticked off De Niro in the Christmas party because you would have showed up with a fur.
Yeah, I wouldn't have lasted long. I'd had the pinky ring, you name it. Oh yeah. Hair slicked.
How about the big white Christmas tree? Would you have bought the most expensive tree for Karen?
No, absolutely not. Maybe Janet Rossi would have had a better tree than Karen, that's for sure. But, yeah, I just like those bars. I just, obviously that era, the music in the background.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, and just those bars, those places aren't, nowadays everything's so commercialized. It's funny. One of my buddies was talking. And he's from Boulder. He played at Notre Dame, lives up in Madison now. His name's Dave Quist. And he goes, what I love about here, he goes, you live in a town where bars are still named after guys. He's like, you don't have that anymore. He's like, You know, it's like, they're named after guys. I was like, yeah, I said, it's kind of funny. There's Norms. There's, there's one we laugh about called the High and Dry Cafe. It's right by the Catholic cemetery where my grandparents are buried.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny. The High and Dry, that's the hot pepper, home of the hot pepper steak burger there. So, yeah, I just, obviously it's glamorized and all that stuff. And, but yeah, I kind of like those scenes and all that stuff. Those bars, they're kind of dying, but it's, comes from an era that, probably been a great area to come up. And obviously was never a great era to be a mobster.
No.
But yeah, if I was, I would have lasted about 6 weeks. Yeah, because I would have had gold chains, pinky rings. Yeah.
Would you have gone facial hair? Would you have tried that? No. Okay.
No. Still Catholic. Short hair, shaved. I'm still Catholic. Yeah, and just like just eat off, guys, and you still go to church on Sunday and get communion, right? I mean, so,
well,
it's just what you do. It's just it's just business. It's just business, right?
Goodfellas, it is a Christmas movie to check out, sort of, kind of. Some Christmas scenes in there. Favorite character in that flick? Is it Pesci? Is it De Niro? Is it Ray Liotta?
Yeah, I think Ray Liotta at times. Okay. I like the young Ray Liotta. He's obviously pretty cool. I like Ray Liotta as an actor, but Jimmy Conway too. You read about him, and that dude was a stud in real life. He come up hard. At least he had some excuses for why he was the way he was. He came up in foster homes and stuff, but there's some other good ones. I like there's Kill the Irishman. You got to check that. Danny Green. That's a great one. My grandparents were heavily involved in unions, and worked at the auto manufacturers and General Electric and shipyards. So some cool stuff. And on the waterfront, I mean, that's a great one. But yeah, Kill the Irishman. Ray Ferrito was the mobster that took Danny Green out. Finally, they couldn't kill him. I mean, they couldn't kill the guy. And Ferrito was a guy that taught my dad how to play handball. And he was growing up. So yeah, pretty neat, man. Pretty neat stuff. But cool stuff. Small world. But yeah, there's some good ones. It's just like I said, it's all romanticized and glamorized. I know that's not the life. Those guys walked around with no money and screwed their families up and spent time in the pen. But the movies are cool. But Danny Green, you'd like that one.
I got to check that out over break.
Yeah, it's called Kill the Irishman. Kill the Irishman. You'd love that. You'd love it.
Rick Kaczenski with us.
Filmed in Cleveland.
Really? Okay.
Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland mob guys. Yeah.
I will check that out. Kaz, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, best to you and your fam, and we'll get caught up in the new year, bud.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you guys, and give a shout out to John Cook and volleyball team, and looking forward to some Husker wrestling. So big fan of Husker wrestling.
Mark Manning's awesome, man.
That's my guy. Dude's unbelievable. One of the best and craziest human beings I've ever met in my life. He was my shrink a couple times when we were in Lincoln. He'd come sit in my office and we just stare at each other and shake heads. And but yeah, he's the best. He's done a hell of a job there. And matter of fact, Shmi, there's a kid from my high school that they got, state champion wrestler.
Okay.
From Cathedral Prep, committed to Nebraska. So get in Pennsylvania, man. Great wrestling state. So beat out some top schools, man, on that kid. So I'm fired up. Give me a reason to follow Nebraska's wrestling even more.
Gaz, we'll talk, bud.
All right, my man. Thanks for having me on. Merry Christmas.
Like what you hear? High quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, Managing Editor. I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So we're both, not super shocked that there's still kind of a waiting game for the quarterback portal option for Nebraska, and we go back to Coach Whipp's take last week that they're always looking, but you've seen some names that have been on Nebraska's radar. First Brennan, now Slovis, and we just don't know, Elijah, just how deep the conversations went. Other than, Coach Joseph was talking with Brennan. There's familiarity, obviously, with LSU. With Slovis, the connection's probably Arizona/Scottsdale from where Whipple's from, right? That's where Slovis came out of. And right now he's going to Pitt. And, Pitt's an 11-win football team. Good on them. But they don't have their OCs here in Lincoln. So, and early in the week, I a couple of times during the show mentioned Notre Dame and Slovis. I mean, that's where he kind of mentioned earlier in the week on a podcast.
Yeah, he seemed to put the cookie trail down himself.
Right, and then Pitt bang out of nowhere. It's like, here we go. And then you finally got it confirmed by Pitt that, yeah, we got Slovis here. Good quarterback. I mean, a lot of experience. He just got dinged and then had some confidence issues. I'll be surprised here if Nebraska, they'll keep your ears and eyes open for Purdy from Florida State. I know that doesn't solve the experience problem as far as, college play, but you had Whipple kind of shopping around pre-Nebraska with Purdy at in home. Casey Thompson, also a guy that did well, and Mitch kind of touched on him. That's Charles Thompson's son, the old option quarterback for OU. Great player that Nebraska beat in Switzer's last game, his dad. So I'm just patient with this. I want to see Whipple. I want to see Whipple with Harburg. I want to see Whipple with Torres. I want to see Whipple with Logan. I'm not saying don't go get a portal guy. No, not at all. But maybe you've got, again, back to the food take, maybe you got some good groceries in the cupboard.
Well, my problem with these names that we're hearing now that some of the top quarterbacks are off the board is that they couldn't start at their old places, and I don't think any of them are better than what Nebraska had in Martinez. And we saw that Martinez wasn't getting the job done. And if the quarterbacks behind Martinez aren't better than Martinez, and these quarterbacks aren't good enough to go start elsewhere, are you getting an upgrade on Martinez? I mean, and fans were angry with the play of Adrian Martinez at times last year, especially during crunch time. So are you getting anybody better than that? Right now, whenever I hear these names, when I hear Purdy, whenever I hear the kid from Texas, whatever his name is.
Casey Rogers.
Yeah, whenever I hear that name, whenever I hear just list any name that's available right now, I go, I don't think that guy's better than Martinez from what I've seen.
I'm interested to see what Adrian does, actually, down at K-State. Do they run him more? Do they keep his pitch count around 20 passes? Does he survive the running aspect of what K-State's offense is now? Big 12's way less physical than the Big 10. Let's get no line in the run game rocking. Tomorrow, we're fired up. Bill Dolman will be with us since we're off Friday. Shuey, hopefully from Wilderness, and of course, Mike Babcock. Talk to you at 4 on Hail Varsity.
A Hurrdat Media Production.